had Miles. So she was like, I don't know, 6 months after having him, still like breastfeeding during that season. And we're playing. And this team, I think they had played a little bit dirty here and there. And then at one point, I don't remember what the guy did, but a dude kicked the ball like it was a dead ball, so the whistle had blown. It was like from me to you, and he kicked the ball and it hit Lisa in the chest. And I'm on the sidelines. And I just didn't think, I was like, dude, she's breastfeeding. What is your problem? And Lisa's like, shut up, Josh. She's breastfeeding.
That's pretty funny, man. That's
good.
pretty funny.
That's good.
That's like an older dude reason to fight.
Right.
You don't hear that from 20-year-olds, man. She's
I should have
breastfeeding.
just grabbed him by the head. And,
That's funny, man.
Just because I don't believe or agree doesn't mean I can't learn from you.
Why did you have to bring that up?
Okay, that one I'm super embarrassed about.
Do you like me?
Do I like you?
Yeah.
As an individual or as a podcast?
just as a person.
No, I like you.
Okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool.
And I don't have any interest in appearing to be stronger than I am.
I ain't bow to Nebuchadnezzar's statue. He gonna lead. You feel me?
How do we love people who see the world differently than we do?
What would it look like if we truly loved all of our neighbors? Could listening to their stories be the first step? This is Seacoast Church, and there's way more to talk about.
All right, well, I will repeat what Lynne said when she walked in. We're with the dream team today, the Jays, man. The PJ. Hey, so behind the scenes, I just want to tell her, is this like official, formal Seacoast protocol that when we talk about these guys in writing, it's PJS for Pastor Josh Surratt and then J-Dub, J and a W for Josh. That's just, it's protocol.
we should put that in the culture book.
We should.
In the culture book.
We're done.
I tell people about the culture book just in case the listeners don't know what the heck you're talking about.
You think they wouldn't know about the culture book? Probably not, would they?
There's a lot of people that call Seacoast home, man.
Well, we just revealed it in the last couple of weeks to our staff, but we've just been working on...
More than staff listens to the podcast.
Trying to do they? We actually... So listenership is up. Okay.
Or so we tell Joey.
Yeah. No, it's just a book that tries to capture sort of what makes Seacoast unique. And I think that one day we should publish it. It's really awesome. We haven't published it yet because it changes so often that it's actually currently out of date, even though we released it a week or two ago with some new changes that have happened around here.
You know, I haven't even thought about it until you said that, but it would be interesting for us to go through our pastoral staff and see who casually just doesn't have a P in front of their initials. I feel like it's saying something without saying something. Pastor Josh Surratt, Josh Walters.
No, I think it's half and half. Most people do PJW.
I see PJW a lot out there.
Okay.
They don't do P Adam, so we
true.
Probably need to discuss that with the staff.
Well, that's because PAM is also got another meaning in our Seacoast culture from Pastor Chip Judd. So that's probably why we don't know that.
That's not in the culture book.
Yeah. What's interesting, too, is we have pastors on staff that I would guess most people, even on staff, would not even know they're a pastor. Like, nobody calls Jack the Lesser Pastor Jack. He's a pastor, correct? All right, isn't he licensed? I'm pretty sure.
He is.
All right, so Lynne,
Adam is also doctor, so it may be that people are confused with.
I'm going to start calling him Dr. Pastor Adam.
We can't abbreviate that one either.
Doc Martin.
Yeah,
Doc Martin.
I like that. That's old school right there. Do you know? This isn't going to surprise you, Josh. In high school, I had a green pair of Doc Martens, navy blue, and black. I was trying, boy.
What surprises me is that you don't still have them. Do you still wear them some or no?
I don't. And it's more of a comfort deal. My feet are all jacked up, and they're just not the best sorry, Dr. Martin, rest in peace, but they're not helpful for my feet. Lynne, we talked behind your back a couple episodes ago, and so now I want to bring it into the forefront.
Right,
maybe repent to you.
Maybe repent.
Well, I don't know if I did anything wrong. And then
it's
Josh,
one of those, if it offended you, he wants to.
and I will be sorry that you took it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I want to bring up something with you, Josh, that it was a long time ago, and you and I liked each other at the time, but we weren't like pals. And so I'm really curious to hear now that we're pals, how you recall the situation, because I think I was a little unusually rambunctious with something that I didn't like. And I just felt like I needed to make my voice heard, and that's not always a thing. And I think you had to take the brunt of it. So I'm just really interested if I annoyed you back.
Are you going to apologize to me as well?
I will if I took
it wrong.
Yeah, if you took it
not
wrong
because of what I said.
If you took it wrong, I'll apologize.
If we're doing airing of grievances today, I've got a few things on each of you that I'd like to just ask for your apologies.
He said
on.
a few on each. Wow.
Kathy, could you please bring me that journal?
And then I did want to ask you some questions about the executive team and how you see it, because I bet you I think what would be somewhat of an unorthodox view on the executive team that I bet you a lot of staff members wouldn't share. But first, Lynn, we're going to get to you.
All right.
So we all talked about, and I think it's neat because I was the only one a part of this conversation. These two will get to chime in for the first time, but we talked about you having a stone cold face. And I'm first of all curious, like without me having to say anything else, Lynne Stroy, do you kind of know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. So I can't even really pinpoint. I would imagine Josh Walters could probably give the best synopsis, given that you guys have worked so long together and closely with you being his assistant. But it was all over the map. But I mentioned how I've never seen you give a courtesy laugh ever. Like if you don't think something's funny, you're not mean about it, but you're going to give that look right there. Everybody else is laughing. You are going to give the straight look. But people took it even further as far as I heard someone, I wish I could remember who said what, but somebody said you are intimidating in interview situations. Like, and this isn't someone who was interviewed by you. It was someone watching you interview, and they're like, oh my gosh, she is not crazy. So somebody has said, this is people, at the podcast table have said that you're hardcore in interviews, but you can be an intimidating person to, I think, dialogue about professional Seacoast stuff. So now that I have kind of given a synopsis, where do you think this comes from? Why do people, because everybody also loves Lynne Stroy. What is this that people are picking up on here, Lynne?
I think there are times when I'm not expressive, and it's not because I'm angry or trying to be intimidating. It's just, that's just my face. And like my friends say it all the time. They're just like, you go into that Lynne look and they're like, do you like it? Do you not like it? Like, what's going on? So,
and as an Enneagram 9er, I can tell you that that did sound kind of funny. Like Tommy Boy, did I get a 9er in there? But there have been times where it's just who I am. I've thought, is Lynne upset about something? Did I say anything upset? And I could probably guarantee you're not upset about anything. Yeah. But it was just early on. I was like, because I'm kind of the opposite, maybe even to a contrived standpoint. I will maybe give a smile when I'm not feeling a smile. Yeah. You ever smile when you're not feeling it?
Not usually. Yeah. No.
Do you play poker?
I have played poker before. I did actually win.
I see.
Yeah.
I think she'd be a good poker player.
Does this surprise you what we're talking about? Because you've worked with Lynne a long time too. You know what we're talking about?
Yeah, I can see it in certain meetings. I'm one that is always trying to read the room and where are people at with whether it's a decision we're making or conversation or message planning, whatever it might be. And I think Lynne would be harder to read unless she speaks up, and talks on something. So I can be like, is she agree? Does she disagree?
Who's one of the easiest people to read?
Josh's wife, Katie's easy to read. She's going to let you know. Lisa, my wife, I think she would tell you that she has to remind her face not to react in certain situations, because she'll just be like, if she's mad about something, you're going to know it right away. Or if she's, enjoying something, you're going to see it. So some people are just, more expressive. I feel like I'm more like you probably in the sense that when I'm not like actively engaged thinking about something, I feel like I just have it's like a deadpan. And for me, it's like more that dry, I can say a joke and people aren't sure if I was joking or serious or what, unless they get to know me. But yeah, I see it in you. You got that.
I loved it
poker
as in terms of like working with Lynne, only because I'm a verbal processor, and so it would be everything from like a message idea or an outline. I would talk something out with her, and I just knew without feedback how Lynne thought about it, because there would either be some like yeah, like she'd be tracking or not at all, and I could know like keep working on it. Okay, I'll go back. Or I would have her proof, like email. You can. Like I was always communicating things that I did not mean to communicate in email. And so I'd be like, hey, Lynne, can you come in and proof this for me? And she would come sit down and read it, and she'd go, I would know, like, okay, we got to change that. Go ahead, just however you think.
So it sounds like there were some times when formally on paper you were the boss.
I mean, briefly, yeah. There were moments for sure.
Well, I think it was about a month ago, we had an episode that talked a little bit about the early stages of Seacoast. And Josh, as we were talking to you and your dad and your sister, I did get an idea. And well, actually, I think I have to give credit to Jack the Lesser. He had brought up doing a whole series on like the Seacoast story, like the early days and all of that. And I just thought, maybe instead of a whole series, just every now and then bring people in to tell stories like that. But I wanted to, since we had an opportunity with you coming in here, when I came on staff, there was something called, I'm pretty sure it was when I came on, it was a DLT. And I'm pretty sure that was Directional Leadership Team. Was that the first... the first time Pastor Greg said, we're going to have a team that I work with and we'll call it the DLT, or was there something that was established before then, to your best memory? Do you remember DLT, Lynne? Is that terminology that you remember? No?
It's the first version of it I remember, but also I came on staff not terribly long before you did, Joey. I think I was 2001. You were what, 2005?
Coming on staff, yeah.
So, we had the Directional Leadership Team, which I would say is very similar to what we currently have as an executive group. But what happened is that the Directional Leadership Team had, I think, maybe 7 or 8 people on it. And then informally, unbeknownst to those of us that were on the Directional Leadership Team, another group formed called the Executive Group. And it was my dad, Byron Davis, and I think Jeff Surratt. And basically what that meant is that they were going to go into the back room and make all the decisions, and then we just kind of got to think that we were part of the leadership team.
Was it really that bad?
It wasn't that bad. I think eventually we had to like bring clarity, but it sort of happened like you'd walk by my dad's office and it was like him, Byron, and Jeff met way more often than any of the rest of us. And then we get to the DLT, and kind of the executive group had already made some decisions or were recommending some things. And so I think what ended up happening is we had to bring clarity to it. And so it would almost be like if you're on a cruise boat, the executive group was like the captain's quarters. They were, determining the path and all of that. And the DLT was more like the cruise director, the head of housekeeping, the head of food, we were kind of representing all of the ministries and executing on the direction and vision that that executive group had. That's probably not the greatest metaphor, but that was sort of what I remember.
Gotcha. All right, so now we have an executive team, and there doesn't seem to be a secondary team. So describe to people in a snapshot approach, like what you would describe is the executive team to people who may have never even heard of this terminology. Yeah, because it's a big function of our staff internal systems. Sure, the executive team, big deal.
I think the best way to describe it would be like the day-to-day decisions that guide Seacoast Church all have everybody who makes decisions has some kind of representation on the executive team. And so if you're a youth pastor at the Irmo campus, you've got Joel Delph, who leads our Mount Pleasant campus, but also leads our ministries and specifically really involved in the student ministry. You know that your voice is going to be represented at the executive team, but it's just basically the leadership team of the church.
And take that a step down. If you're a parent of a student, your voice can be heard by telling your student director who would tell Joel. So everybody really has a voice.
In theory, that's the hope, but and it wasn't always that way. In fact, I remember Chris Hodges came one time and did an all staff for us, and then he met with our executive team. And I was driving to the airport, and I just said, "Hey, any feedback that you have for me?" And he goes, "Yeah, you don't have the right people on your team." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "It's not the people that I'm talking about, but he said you have 2 or 3 people on your team that actually don't lead anybody in the church. They're just there because of their history, longevity, honor. And then you have several ministries that have zero voice at the executive team." He asked me, he was like, "If a youth pastor was frustrated, how would that ever surface to you?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I mean, we have a casual culture. So, we aren't like a bureaucratic deal where it has to go through, but in the organizational chart, they would have no voice there." And so we changed it. And but it's basically the body of elders, if you will. If you've ever been to a newcomers, or we call it Next Steps now, but you would see that we've got 4 different circles of elders. We have overseers who really just are there if I screw up. They're responsible, really, I would say, for my health and my marriage. We've got the trustees who oversee the financial health of the church. It's 7 people. Then each campus has elders, spiritual elders, and they are, there's 8 functions of that. I won't get into that. But then you've got the staff elders that oversee the day-to-day operations of the church, and that's the executive group team.
I've never thought of this. Is there a one person who is basically tasked with taking over in the event that
like a
something happened?
Survivor?
Well, like if you had an affair, is there someone pinpointed to? Okay, that's like with your dad, I would assume. Is that like a unsaid rule, or is there something?
So our bylaws outline a process for transition in both a healthy transition, if I don't have any kind of a moral failure, and if it comes time, I have actually in our bylaws, I get to nominate somebody and the team will vote on that, but I get at least 1 or 2, I think, chances to name a successor that then the team would be able to vote on. And then if I screw up or something were to happen, I know I've told our team if I were to die, I did a sabbatical this year, which meant I was flying a decent amount, and it wasn't a formal thing, but I said, hey, if something happens to me, I would want Greg to step back in. And the reason for that is because Greg doesn't want it long term. And so he would be a great interim person who could help guide us through stable voice would be able to guide us through an effective transition process if something were to happen. And I guess that if I flamed out, which I'm not planning to, by the way, or made some big moral failure, he'd probably step in right now while he can. He's 68, so
he'd probably be a little upset about it, having to step in.
Oh, he would. When I told him that, he was like, "Oh no," and I was like, "That's why you would do it." Because what I wouldn't want is a bunch of peers who thought that each of them could lead it. I mean, that's a great thing about our executive team is we have such a great group of leaders at the table, even beyond our executive team, that could lead this church. And I just wouldn't want it to become a politicking, jockeying for position. Nobody would do that purposefully, but in an environment where there's not a leader, I'd rather have somebody who is not trying to put their name in the hat to lead the whole process to help us figure out, is it internal, is it external, any of that.
Yeah. That's good stuff, man. I appreciate you sharing that. So the little bit of an unorthodox approach that I take to the executive team that I'm curious, are you on the executive team? You're not, and you both are. Obviously, you are. Josh Walters is as well. I feel that every member of the executive team has a certain level of influence that I'm not asked to have, you're not asked, Lynne's not asked to have, and I don't say that in a negative way at all. I see the people that have been asked to be on the team as people that I would even answer to. And Josh Walters, you are my direct supervision, so you're my main boss, but I'll give an example. Now, I think this is partly how I'm wired up, but I also have a mystical belief in the Holy Spirit. Now, the Holy Spirit will guide the church. But if I'm out and about, let's say on a missions trip, and let's say I'm the team leader, but let's say Joel Delph is on the team, and there's something going on that's a bigger deal. Joel Delph has been here for 3 years. I've been here for almost 20. I'm going to default to him. Just because I feel like that's someone you have chosen to have in your closest proximity. Y'all are having conversations that I'm not a part of. I just feel like that's my default. So I thought of a funny example. Sam Lesky has been my boss probably longer than anybody on staff, and it'd be really weird if he started telling me what not to do with the podcast. And I'd probably talk to you, Josh Walters, say, I don't know what's going on with Sam. But until I talk to Josh Walters, I'd be like, I need to weigh heavily what Sam is saying because he is meeting with you on a regular basis. Would you say that is healthy or that's just weird, Joey?
I think it's healthy. I think that obviously you have to have clarity on roles and responsibilities. And if we're all jumping in and out of each other's lanes, it's going to create problems long term. But I do think that if somebody on our executive team, let's say they were at a campus and they saw something that they know this is not, in line with how we want to do it, I would hope they would feel empowered to have a conversation, and then to go back to that person's leader and go, hey, had this conversation, this is how it went, and let's run with it. So I would hope we have a healthy enough culture that we would do it. But I do have an idea for the executive team that I was going to maybe propose that maybe this is the right place for it.
Ooh, is this a joke or is this serious?
Well, you know how in soccer, like English Premier League soccer, there's 20 teams that are at the top level.
Lynn's like,
and at the end of every
about soccer.
her face did reveal that. It was a good job, Lynn. But so at the end of the season, the bottom, I think it's 2 or 3 teams get actually relegated to a lower division, and then the top 3 from the other, the lower division, get brought up to the English Premier League. And so every year you have to perform. I was thinking about having a relegation of the executive team. The lowest performing executive team member is off this year, and the highest performing non-executive team member is on the team. Wouldn't that be fun? That'd be pretty cool.
It would be fun.
I'll propose it. We've got a meeting later with the executive team. I think I'm going to propose that. Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be some Enneagram numbers of people on there that would love it, and some that will just actually hate it.
The competitions be like, all right, let's do this.
There would be some upset Niners.
All right, so I think this is going to be a fun conversation to have. Can you make any guesses, just the little bit that I said to Josh, what this is going to be about? I mean, we're talking years ago.
There's so many things it could be that I don't want to bring up the wrong one.
So I remember being rambunctious with the terminology Dream Team. Do y'all remember that? The terminology. All right. So basically, we had called it. Well, I actually don't know. I think we called it volunteers. Do y'all remember what we called it before Dream Team?
It needed to be volunteers.
Yeah, a volunteer team or something. Yeah. And I remember, so Dream Team, I'm pretty sure that's the terminology. Do you remember this at all or not really?
I might. Keep talking.
So I think we got that from Church of the Highlands, right?
Probably.
Yeah. So I just remember feeling, man.
I mean, 90s basketball.
Yes.
First, but then Highlands.
Yes. Well, that was my big point. And I remember I kind of have, so this is just how I'm wired up. When I came on staff as a campus pastor, I kept my mouth shut for a very long time because I just felt like I'm the new guy. Nobody cares what I think. And I don't think that's what you want from new guys at all. That's just kind of how I am. But this was further in. Now looking back, I realize how silly I was to feel so strongly. But Lynn, I did not like the Dream Team. And I remember my thing was, it's just, we're Christians and we're humble in heart, and it seems like we're telling people, hey, we've got this team and it's called the Dream Team. And I remember I mentioned that specifically. When I think Dream Team, I think 1992, Barcelona, Barkley, Bird, Jordan, Magic. What are we trying to say about ourselves? And I remember speaking early on in the process. I mean, I was pushing hard because I was like, I cannot let this happen. And I remember saying my last piece, and it was pretty much, I could tell the meeting, it was pretty much a done deal. And I was just like, I'll just say it one more time. But looking back, I realized how dumb that was to make such an uproar. But you don't even remember that hardly at all, would you?
I do vaguely. But not,
Yeah. So it wasn't in a way of, who's this Joey guy, man? Just be quiet and get with the program.
I remember you came to me offline about it.
Did I
too.
really?
Oh, yeah. You talked to me offline. Maybe it was an email. I don't remember. But you were pretty adamant about it. And I'll agree with you. We don't want our newer campus pastors to stay quiet, but we do want Joey to stay quiet.
There are a few older former campus pastors.
That was the first time you ever spoke up about anything?
I mean, as I would guess, it was the first time I was that assertive about something. I mean, we're talking, that was a long time ago, though. So I became a campus pastor in 2008. I'm going to guess this conversation's 2011, 2012. But yeah, I really, it was to probably an unhealthy degree how I felt like, hey, there needs to be a chunk of time here to where I just listen and take it all in and just be quiet.
I do remember, like, it was a big shift only because the challenge for you and all the other guys was like, at a campus, you had to own that language.
Right.
So you were going from having volunteers to saying like, I want you to be on my dream team.
Right. And I'm a rule follower, so it was just like, I got to fight because once I lose this fight, I got to own that tournament. Exactly. And it took me a while, man. It took me a while to
We should interview some volunteers from James Island back in the day. How did Joey do with that?
I bet you with my elders, I said with a smile on my face, hey, I really don't like this terminology, but as Seacoasters, we're going to follow our guy and we love... No, I handled it well, I'm sure. All right, Josh, taking a very serious turn before we get to Ray Wimley. You were part of so we've got 2 hip-hop episodes in a row, and you were part of both of them, right? Ray Wimley is the Instagram phenomenon that stands out in public spheres and freestyles. I showed you it is ridiculous. And
some of his stuff at stadiums, like people leaving concerts and football games.
He is such a cool guy. So
thank you for a job for the ones that's in sight. Drum nasty, looking finna get it clean. Pulling with the burgundy pants that's on the scene. Number one with the mask. Only got the birds in their head. You know what it is. See him as he pay a peace sign. In due time, how you feeling, bro? Dog, like I'm here to bloody mind. Father like son, I can see the shirt while I'm having fun. You know
that's what people will hear in this episode. And then next week is 1K Few, who is kind of exploding in the Christian hip hop world. Super young guy. I think he said he's like 22 or something
young.
like that. Yeah. Super, super neat guy. But anyway, so people are going to have fun listening to these 2 guys. Josh, I wanted to kind of close in a very, we can keep it lighthearted, but it's a very serious question. What are you hoping we can pull off here at Seacoast in early November when it comes to our hearts in leading up to the election and post-election?
Wow. We did turn the corner.
We turned the corner.
Well,
and you know what's crazy?
The hip hop, I was ready. I was kind of teed up for something pertaining to hip hop, but then Who
would be your most? You would be the most excited if I said, Josh, I got a hip hop guy, and you're never going to believe who it was.
Oh, definitely Snoop.
Yeah.
Listen, Snoop, isn't it funny at the Olympics that somehow Snoop has become like the wholesome, like the least controversial person topic.
He loves himself some America. We all love
in the
Snoop.
90s when I wasn't even allowed to say Snoop Dogg Dogg to my parents. I'd get my mouth washed out with soap. And now he is like Mr. America.
That's true.
Obviously we have a big election coming up, and it's a challenge, as any pastor would tell you. Election season's hard because you've just got a lot going on. And I think if it were me just saying, what do I hope would happen? I would hope that we all practice being really good humans and followers of Christ during this season. And I think that means that we would pray for our country, that we would pray for who we should vote for. I know most people that are listening probably don't need to pray or wouldn't think about praying because I feel like most people have made up their minds in a lot of ways around this topic. But then pray about what is my role supposed to be in other people's lives as it relates to the election. Because I think what happens, at least on social media, is we become convinced that our role is to convince everybody else to do the same thing that we're doing. And then I think we get into that whole speck and log situation where we want to scream about what's wrong with your candidate or your side and completely ignore, my side's issue or our side's issue. And I think it just becomes really toxic. And so maybe that we wouldn't post anything, that we wouldn't say to somebody in face-to-face conversation, or even go further than that and say, if it was my son, daughter, because I know politics have divided a lot of families, but would you say this to somebody that you love, and how would you say it to somebody that you love? Because I have no problem with people being passionate about their politics. I love politics. I'm going to vote. I care a lot about the issues. I don't love the culture that we're in right now. I don't love that that each side has moved so far, at least in the primary process, to get somebody on a ticket. You've got to be so far left or so far right. That really bothers me because I think it actually doesn't represent the majority of the people in America. But I do like politics. I think it's important. Do I think this is the most important election that we've ever had? Sure, because everyone is probably more important than the last one.
This one really feels like it, though.
But they always say that, and
Right.
And part of the problem is that in order to get people's attention and get fundraising and all of that, they have to cater to some of the more extreme, whether that be the anger that exists within their kind of demographic. And I think it just doesn't bring out the best in people. And so my hope is that here at Seacoast, I know that we are a purple church, that we've got people that are going to vote red and vote blue. And, I just would hope that we would treat people well, regardless. I hope that we would see our politics through the lens of our faith versus our faith through the lens of our politics. I said something in 2020 that kind of blew up on social media, and the statement was, I care less about who you vote for than I do about how you treat people who vote differently than you. And it didn't feel like a very controversial thing to say to me, because what I was saying is not that I don't care who you vote for, because I do think that politics are important, but that it's more revealing to me if you can't love somebody who voted differently than you.
You got hammered by both sides.
I got hammered by both sides, but it also gained a lot of traction on social, and I think it resonated with some people. And so I would just hope that we could love people well and not let two people that we will never meet face to face, most likely, divide us as a church or divide us as a friend group or family, any of that. It's just not worth it. It's important, yeah, but is it worth the relational chaos that I think happened to a lot of people in 2020? And so I just hope that we can love people well and be good humans as we go through a really polarizing thing. People should look at the church and see something different. And unfortunately, that's just not always the case. And again, it's easy to point fingers at other churches, but even at Seacoast, I just wish that we would model something a little bit differently. That our love for Christ and what He's done in us actually carries more weight and speaks to our identity more than the party that we associate with.
That's one of the things I love most about your dad. I feel like he's modeled that so well for me. And not that my parents didn't in some ways, but I feel like I didn't grow up talking a lot about politics. And man, I've seen him time and time and time again just tee up a conversation, asking someone about their beliefs purely just to learn from their perspective. He may not agree with them. Sure, he may not like what he's hearing, but like you wouldn't know it from his demeanor and attitude towards the people. And so can you imagine what it would have been like in terms of, I'm thinking, and I just don't remember when I was a kid, but I can't imagine a voting climate without social media.
Oh my gosh.
Just like to your point, like don't post something that you wouldn't say to someone. Man, I bet pre-social media elections, like people had conversations and tempered their words and weren't as,
I remember
divisive.
having a teacher who said that she and her husband don't talk about who they're voting for. Like growing up.
Wow.
Well, it was taboo, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they would say politics and religion, don't bring them up at Thanksgiving. Don't bring, and I don't know if that was healthy or not. It probably kept people from saying, having honest conversations with each other. But now, obviously, the pendulum has swung.
Yeah.
Did a little history lesson? Did you guys know that the first televised debate was Nixon and JFK, and people who listened on the radio and did not see them basically said Nixon won. People who watched said JFK won, and most historians say it definitely dictated the win. Like JFK won because of how awesome he was visually and his smile and all of that. So that's even a crazy thought, is to think of times when you couldn't even watch two candidates, go
Well,
at
I
it.
mean, a lot of people don't even realize we had a president, and I'll reveal my how poorly I did in history in school, but that was basically a quadriplegic.
Is that Taft?
FDR? No, FDR,
That's
yeah.
right.
And so, like, this guy that you read about in history and think about, like, great leadership, and again, whether you agree with his politics, led through difficult times, all that, like, literally he was wheelchair bound.
The whole time, his presidency?
I think so,
Gosh.
yeah. Polio,
and then died during his presidency, during the war. That's what's crazy.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you just almost can't imagine a leader that couldn't represent physically and personality and all that, some kind of charisma or but that's probably because we didn't have television media at that point. And so
who are you voting for, Lynn?
That is so, I'm not going to answer that, Joey.
You didn't. You could have gone stone face there. That would have been the perfect.
Nothing but silence.
Joey.
You get the last word, then I'm going to tell you a story, and then we're done.
Oh, I was just going to say that it's crazy how powerful charisma is. Mm-hmm. And when it doesn't speak to skill or integrity or character, but that charisma would change everything.
Yeah. For sure.
Riz, as the kids would say.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what the kids are saying?
I don't know the meanings of these. Hey, I got a real tickle from my son who's 14. I said something about sigma and skibbity, and he's like, Dad, he's like, kids my age, we don't talk that way. I died laughing because here I am trying to like mess with them, and I'm saying like third and fourth grade stuff and didn't know it. He's like, Dad, we don't talk that way in high school. All right, so I told this story to Pastor Greg, I want to say on this podcast a long time ago, but I want to tell it one more time, and then we'll close it up because I know it sends bad chills down their spine. So, Lynn, check this out. There was a time when Seacoast, there wasn't as much harmony from the leadership to all the other campuses, and it was kind of purposely done. All the campuses were just left with a lot of margin because it was early on in the process. We're trying to figure this out. This is around the time there's two campuses. The campus that I was at, there was an election year where at the end, so this was before we did response time, at the end of, so it was the blessing, and then he said, by the way, we have these stickers. So they were bumper stickers of a candidate, and we're handing them out in the lobby. I told Pastor Greg that. I was like, did you know? I said, did you know that happened over 20 years ago? He was like, I did not know that.
I don't think I knew it either, but it doesn't surprise me. We've seen the bumper stickers show up. We try to keep them from getting passed out, but because people are passionate about it. And so we used to do like an informational packet on candidates locally without like endorsing anybody, but we would just kind of give like a bio on like town council, because honestly those are the elections that probably impact our day-to-day lives the most, is the local elections, but I don't think we even do that anymore.
I remember when I was campus pastor during election season, we would have people sneak flyers into bathrooms and road signs throughout the property, and there was always
windshield wiper
flyers. Yeah, there was That's great. Never worship center handouts.
What's interesting to me about that is that when we were small, nobody really cared, but what the dynamic that is happening is some people would look at Seacoast as a voting block. That if they could, and even look at my job as a leader is to influence and sway this large group of people to vote in one direction or another. And I do think that we have a responsibility as leaders to influence our church towards discipleship and spiritual growth and meeting Jesus and finding God, discovering their purpose and making a difference. But I think what happens, and a lot of pastors do it, is they, on both sides, is they decide to use the influence that God has given them for political gain in one direction or another. And I've just decided a long time ago, like, I don't think that God gave us this influence so that we'd use it on politics. I think he gave us this influence so we would use it to bring more people into the kingdom, as many as we possibly can. And when we sell out on one direction or the other, we're basically saying we want to create an echo chamber of people that agree with us politically in this way, and we're choosing not to reach people who don't see it the same way. And so, anyways.
Heck yeah. That's our lead pastor right there. Who you voting for, Lynne?
She was ready that time.
Can't not curse right now. I'ma keep it clean. I see the homie with the money on the scene. Then he picking up a card. I think he put a green, making music. I rap while I'm on the boulevard. In my zone. I feel so comfortable. He's so fresh. He feeling with the jacket on.
Somebody told me something, my next door neighbor actually, and I was like, man, that's good perspective, because I was talking about how hard it is to see your kids grow up and everything. And he's just like, but everybody has to go through it. And that's just the simplest thing. But I was like, that's so true. Every single parent has to go through it. How old are your kids?
Oh, you got me thinking now. So I got 5.
Dang, nice. You've got one more than me.
Oh, you know how it is then. So let me think. Just say 8, 7, 6, 4, and 2.
Golly, yeah.
I normally don't get them right, but I got them right today. So yeah, it's good.
Nice, so, man. Yeah. I'm able to like skip every year. So basically, after the summer, I'll have 18, 16, 14, and 12. So yeah, man.
Well, I know that household was crazy.
Yeah, not as crazy as yours because of the age, man. Oh man, how are you doing with all those kids, man? It's a beautiful, enriching blessing, but it's hard too.
It's one of the most challenging things, I think, in life, right? Because you go in with so much optimism. You're so grateful, you're so thankful, you and your wife, and you got these ideas. I'm a parent this type of way. I'm going to have these models set up. I'm going to do all the right things. And then life like kind of hits you in your face, and it challenges everything, your growth, your mentality, your personality, your anger. Like, it's like so many things that constantly are a challenge, but at the same time, they're evolving, right? So to me, it's kind of like one of the biggest, I think, blessings I could have ever have, that I didn't even know how deep things were going to turn out. So to me, it's just like, man, I could say so many great things about my children, how they bless me and how they just force me to grow and really take life seriously and really appreciate it. So when things don't go my way, I don't know if I have the same amount of stress I would if I was single and didn't have any kids. I'd probably be tripping over everything, every little inconsistent thing. But now it's kind of like, life gonna work out. It always works out. You can't really worry about the small stuff.
Yeah.
What about you? What's kind of one of the biggest things you think you learned?
Yeah. Well, I had to work out of the almost like a continual fear of seeing my kids hurt. So when they were younger, it was a lot easier because if they fall and scrape their knee, you pick them up, you hold them until they're finished crying. We're good to go. Dad just held you. Now you're fine. Now you can go play. When a peer of theirs hurts their feelings and hurts their heart, it's a whole different story, because it's like, oh, life stuff. I can't just pick you up and fix this. I can be your guide. I can say some things from experience. You can learn from me however little or much you want, but I can't protect you from the hurt that this world is going to give you. And so for me, it was a long journey to figure out how to let go of the fact that I can't protect them from pain. And that's hard, man. It's like you're blessed with these kids and you have that protective innate thing in a parent's heart, and then when you realize that you can't do what you want to do, and to make matters even more complicated, if you could protect your kids from everything while they're in your household, it wouldn't do them any good, because then they would leave your household and be like, oh, the real world, there's hurt out here. Mom and dad didn't let me experience that. So crazy stuff, man.
So what did you said when you let go, is it like any specific techniques? Is it like a strategy, a formula? Is it a process that you kind of like say, okay, this happened, let me get time to myself, And then, you know, like, how do you navigate it when you are faced with adversity?
Yeah.
Like
So first, I have a really good therapist that has helped me out a lot. But I think that I think the letting go. I think what I should say probably is I figured out acceptance. And this, man, parents, bear with me, but you know, I mean, this will ring true. But man, our worst fear is to lose one of our children, like for them to pass away and for us to outlive them. And I think wrapping your mind around the fact that A, parents experience that every day. B, I'm not in the clear. And that is just how ruthless life is. Life is beautiful, but life is ruthless. And I think just accepting that, and because once you accept that, I think you also accept the fact, okay, well, now I've got two options. I can either dwell on this and know that there's a possibility that I could outlive one of my kids, and I can dwell on it and I can let it eat me alive, consume me, rob me of my happiness, or I can take one day at a time and be thankful for each day. But yeah, it's a process, man. It's a process.
Wow. That seems like it really creates a healthy checks and balance. I think anytime death could be pertinent like that, you kind of look at life with a more gratuitous eye. Because I know since I've been little, I've had friends that like passed, or like I had a friend that passed on the basketball court at a game. His dad was there.
Dang.
And yeah, it was very intense because I turned around for like a brief second, and the next thing I know, he was on the ground. And we didn't know what happened. We thought we was going to start clapping, and, you know, that people come and we go do the whole thing. But, you know, he never got up.
Gosh.
And that was heart-wrenching for the whole community, because in that point in time, it was like, you know, you're young. So death happens to older people, right? It's not something that could really happen to you. Your parents say that, but it's not something you really experience. When I experienced that, and then it was kind of like a shock and a wake-up call to be like, okay, nobody's like, I mean, everybody has a death day, right? And then the crazier part about it is when I was talking to his dad, every time he would see me, it was hard for him to hold a conversation, because he said I reminded him of his son. And so going through life, I do think having a fear of, because the first, you ask how it is, it's like, man, the first, it seemed like you always just trying to keep them alive. Like, get out the street, like, get off the bed. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't eat that. Take your hand away. Like, the stress that comes with, like, when we had our first child, we was in the hospital, like, all the time, because she would just pick stuff up and eat it. Now we like, Mom, like, okay, now we got to go to the hospital. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, so that part of it is crazy. But then you also learn resilience. I think it's a big test to your faith, too. I think it's also like, okay, well, that's something that we as a society don't talk about until it happens, right? You know, the afterlife and people going. But I think introducing that conversation now in a healthy way creates a different appreciation, because my mom did that. She was always introducing it in the way of like, you know, this life is temporary. You know, so don't hold grudges. Don't be mad at your friends. You know what I'm saying? Make sure your faith is strong. And those things guided me through life, and it gave me a moral compass that I could have to like not look at the stressors so like gut-wrenching and like I'm just shocked with fear and paralyzed. Like, okay, these things are just the ways of life, and there's an ebb and flow. My auntie always used to say, you know, with life comes death. And I believe death is transition anyways. It's not final. It's not finite. It's just another transition. So what you're saying, yeah, I think every parent has that, you know, but then knowing that, you know, she graduates, and then that sense of like pride, and that sense of like, man, like my son he just got out of kindergarten, right? But to me, I don't think I've had that sense of, I never felt that sense of happiness because I didn't have a father. So like looking at him and him like just like doing that was like, wow. Like, okay, he gonna be all right. You know what I mean? Like you did a great job. Like everything you had to, you know, you went through to make sure that your family was okay, like it paid off, and it's paying off. And I think that's a great sense of validation to have. Like, man, your baby did it.
Yeah.
Like on to the next chapter. Like So that's congratulations,
Yeah,
man. That's
man.
amazing.
I appreciate it. Man, we got deep quick, man. We're ministering to each other as fellow fathers, man. This is great. Hey, I will, in real time, I want to share something with you that struck a chord with me. There's a pastor and therapist who's on this podcast a lot. And man, when he says this pertaining to my own kids, it's the most challenging concept. But in general, this is really great advice when it comes to just our day-to-day relationships with people we care about. He says that as humans, we've got to learn how to care deeply for people without carrying their stuff, because we can't carry their stuff. We need to care. But man, when it comes to your kids, he says that, hey, the same thing with your kids. You got to learn how to care deeply without carrying. And I think a lot of that applies even more to adult children and stuff. But it's easier said than done. But I always keep that in the back part of my mind. And one thing that I've learned very recently is when I'm trying to, or when I'm allowing myself to carry the burdens of my kids and let it weigh on me, I'm not as good as a father, because I am stuck. I'm stuck in their stress and their turmoil, and I'm sad for them, and it cripples me in my ability to offer them wisdom and to help and guide them, because I'm sad for them also. And so I've recognized how it's kind of something that is beneficial to them as well by not carrying their burdens, if that makes sense.
So how doing that, because it's almost like it's okay to be okay, even if they're not okay. Like, of course, you're expressing that empathy and that compassion, So how do you deal with, I guess, I want to say guilt, but I guess it is a little bit of that, right? Because you want to feel like I'm there with you emotionally, but I'm not removed. So how do you process and say, okay, this is okay for me to be okay right now, because I know I have to be level-headed. I know I have to be, strong, but not just in the stereotypical sense, but I have to, basically be level-headed. How do you, I don't know if it's justified, but what thought processes that help you just be okay with being like, you know what, I'm going to get my time, I'm going to get my sense, I'm going to get my peace, and then we'll come back to this, and I know that my children will be okay in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that something that I've rested, that's kind of calmed my spirit, is, and I'll say it to you instead, but just the fact that you ask that question shows that your heart is for your children, and one of the best things that you can do for your children is to take care of your health. So if anything, we should feel the opposite of guilty. Like, man, this is good for my kids that I take care of myself, because I want to be a good dad to them.
Okay. Wow.
But hey, I'm not the expert, man. I'm not the expert. This is my...
that's needed though.
Yeah.
Because I tell my wife that, I be like, it's funny, you tell your partner often what you need to hear yourself. So I'll be telling her like, nah, I got it. Like, chill. Go. We do like little staycations. Like, go get a little hotel day. Like, chill. It's okay for you to be okay. But hearing that, it's like, okay, it's not. Sometimes parents, you feel like you're alone, or you feel like you only go through. It's personal, but I'm learning some of the emotions that we go through as parents are not as personal as you start to open up and connect with people. So
yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, Ray, man, it's good to meet you. I have watched some of your Instagram posts multiple times, man, because I'm a big hip hop fan. And man, what you do freestyling is just mind boggling. But I mean, it's not only really, really good, but it's like, man, you can't not bob your head up and down if you like hip hop. I mean, my boss, so the guy that I report to, he's big into hip hop also. And I was showing him a clip of you, and you know how when you're showing something like a reel, you don't want them to feel like they have to watch the whole thing, So you're kind of like, yeah, that's cool, huh? I was like, that's cool, huh? I started bringing my phone back. He's like, give me your phone, man. I gotta watch this whole thing. He's just like staring at it. But so I want to get into some hip hop and freestyling and stuff. But where do you live? Where am I talking to you from?
Man, I'm in Phoenix right now, man.
Okay.
Phoenix. AD.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
Are we a Suns fan?
I can be.
You can't
You
be.
know, I say I can be. I don't oppose the Suns, but I'm from Arkansas originally, so I don't have a professional NBA team. And it's like, to make it short, I like when teams stay teams.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I grew up, I say 2000s, I was a big Lakers fan because, you know, teams would stay together forever. So it's like you go through the ups and downs. You don't have to worry about the star leaving. So now it's like I could be a Suns fan this week, and then next week my favorite player that was on the Suns is playing for like New York.
Mm-hmm.
But I can be. So
yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And are you originally from Phoenix?
I'm from Arkansas originally.
That's Arkansas. That's
Arkansas.
right. That's right. And and how did you grow up? Like you said, you did not have a father. When you reflect on your childhood, do you have positive reflections? Like, give me a little snapshot of your childhood and what it looked like.
Man,
Ray's like, how do I put that in a snapshot? What's wrong with you, man?
Yeah, you know. If I could think about one thing that's coming to mind, my mom would always say, enjoy the age that you're at.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be 8 again. You're not going to be 9 again, 10, 12, 15, whatever. So that always kind of made me present. Though I didn't have a dad, the energy of him not being there wasn't looming. I had like 4 women in my life, my sister, my auntie, my mom, and my great aunt. And they were like more than enough macho for me because they always would put me in sports. I always had me playing track, golf, baseball, whatever, like kept me active. My auntie forced me to join the usher board when I was like 8 or 7 and got baptized. So I was always at church with her. She was always giving. So she was always teaching me, like, don't just talk, do the work. My auntie was the financial one, like, make sure that you organize your money and can take care of yourself. My sister was like the big sister who could never do wrong to me because she always was on her grind. And my mom was just my rock emotionally. And as I evolved, you know, other people got introduced, like my stepdad and my stepbrother, which, like my brother, blood could make us no closer. So it was just a lot of gratuity, a lot of appreciation. And then just home. It really felt like home. They could cook really good. The food was always tasty. And the times that were, I guess, sad, I wouldn't know what they were, but I wouldn't feel it for long. So I would say my childhood was about being present.
Yeah. All right. So when your teacher in school said, Ray, I need you to stop talking, were you like, stop talking? Let me see how many times you're gonna ask me, and you just start freestyling. When did you know you had a gift, man? And like, what was your interaction with hip hop at a young age?
Man, it's so weird because my people hated hip hop. I don't know if they hated hip hop, but rap. So Arkansas is a very mainstream city. So it's not like a New York or like an East Coast type vibe. We don't have like the underground scenes and outlets to go see like people that's in the industry that's not on TV. So everything that was on TV was what they thought rap was, and I did too. So I didn't want to be a rapper when I was like, matter of fact, that was one thing they said, I don't think you should do. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this is definitely not going to happen. It wasn't until I got to college and was freestyling, and I remember listening to Def Jam poetry when I was like 16, and that inspired me to instantaneously start making something with the arts, which was intrinsic. So I guess that was where it started, but where it kind of became like, you know what, I think I can do this was maybe my second year in college, second and a half. So it was that second year, second semester. And I came back from Little Rock, and my friend had showed me this book, and it was just basically talking about, you know, why not you? Why not you create an opportunity for yourself to make something happen? And that's when I started to really get involved and make it a career. And I started my own organization in college called Open Mind. It was for the arts. And then everything progressed after that out of necessity. So hip hop really came into my life as a full-time occupation when my daughter was on the way. So it kind of been like instances here and there. I don't know if it's just like one particular instance. It's been a multitude of things, but it's kind of like something that been in the background. And then I was like, oh, I actually could do this. And then when my wife said I was good, because she's a critic, like really serious about good music, I was like, well, if I got her approval, then I feel like I'm about to go ahead and do it then.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So what I'm about to say may be controversial to some people, and I may even asking you to push back. But we tell our kids, hey, go reach for your dreams. There's nothing nothing you can't succeed in. And I'm like, what if your dreams is to be the next MJ? All right. Not everybody can just say, I'm going to be the next Michael Jordan. I don't care how much you put your mind to it. It doesn't matter. Some things ain't reachable. So for somebody to like, if I go up to my child and I said, hey, look at this guy, Ray Wimley. You hear this guy? You hear the freestyling? You could do that if you put your mind to it. I'm lying. I'm lying to my kid, man. And so like you have a gift. Like, what happened to where you were just like, I mean, so here's what I want to do for our listeners is go to some of the links I'll put in the show notes. Watch what we're talking about here. So you'll go out to, and I mean, I'm just barely scratching the surface, but it looks like you'll go somewhere where there's a lot of people leaving a sports event or something, and you're out there freestyling. And so for people who aren't familiar with hip hop, you're coming up with lyrics that are poetic, that also flow with rhymes. But what you're doing is you're even interacting with the people kind of on a personal level by freestyling and saying things about them or what they're doing or what they're wearing, and you're interacting with them. And so I just walk us through what's going on in your head, because you look all loose, like it's just a second language, but you've got to be concentrating like crazy and like thinking, and I'm just guessing, but are you thinking, okay, I'm saying something right now, but what am I going to say next? Like what's going on in your head, in your brilliant head, man?
First of all, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know if it's the same every day, but I'll give it like a majority. So like 70% of the time, well, 100% of the time, I'm trying to achieve what I call a flow state. And the flow state is where everything is organic. And I'm letting all of the practice I've done just show up on the court because it's instinctive for me. So I think it's about getting into a particular state before you go out there. So how music works for me is like a conversation. When you're really inspired, when you hear something that's very profound, it's very easy for you to communicate how you feel in that moment, right? When you're in a great conversation with somebody, it's just a natural flow to it. So I call that the flow state. And I wondered for a while, well, how can I get in the flow state when I'm doing this freestyle? And essentially, I'll make sure that I like the beats. I try to get into a good mood, stay in a good mood as much as I can. You know how it is with kids. And just trying to make sure that when I'm out there, I'm communicating something of value. So those are like my 3 principles. So once that happens, I'll say like about 70% of the time I reach that flow state. The other 30, I'm kind of like disgruntled or upset with myself. Not too much, but once I get in that flow state, then everything else is almost like natural. So I don't know if it's weird, man. I could be saying something about somebody's blue shirt, and I don't even know if somebody got one on, but I feel like it rhymes. I thought I saw it in my peripheral vision, so let me just put it out there. And what's the chances of somebody having a blue shirt on that can connect to this rhymes? Probably pretty high. Or maybe I'll analyze the event prior before I get out there. Say, for instance, I did this band called Vampire Weekend.
Oh yeah, I know Vampire Weekend.
They got some songs. I'll go through their songs and I'll start listening to some of the things that they talk about and figure out how could I attribute that to the hip hop. And then once I get in the flow state, those things come out. So it's a very natural process, but it's a lot of work prior to. So I'm always rapping. I'm always working on my language, always reading, always trying to find different things that can expand my vocabulary. And then I challenge myself. So, but that came from a lot of practice. Like I think I naturally had the gift to freestyle, and then I was always freestyling forever. And then I just started to implement different strategies to make it more poignant. So those were some of the 3 things I would say. And then I have some retainers sometimes. So people only wear, like, I done seen so many pairs of Vans, so many Jordan shorts, so many like Bass Pro Shop, Wrangler jeans, like, or if I'm going to like a country concert, they're going to have 10-gallon caps and cowboy boots. So it's like, but if that gets boring, I try to go investigate a little bit more into the different cultures to see like where it's a similarity and figure out how I can rhyme. So those are kind of like some of the strategies that I use in order to stay in a flow state. And sometimes I think about lyrics, or sometimes I can just feel what's on people's heart. Certain people wear their emotions, and I don't know if people are that. Example, like when you ask your son, like, okay, did you get that Snicker bar? Mm-hmm. Like, no, I didn't get the Snicker. And he got the chocolate right down his mouth. Like, you got the bar. You know what I'm saying? It's like. So I kind of go past that. I can see, okay, this couple looked like they were kind of in an argument. I don't know if I'm going to dig that too much into that. Or these people over here look like more joyous. Or that person looks kind of sketch. Who is that? And so it's like you're picking up energy constantly. And I used to be weary of that because I was always an empathetic person. But as I'm growing, I'm like, okay, that's my senses telling me what's going on in the environment. And how I navigate the environment is vocally and rhythmically. And that helps me kind of like put things in perspective. So that's more so what I'm doing, man. And when I started rapping in New Orleans, because that's where everything happened, it was a lot of dangers about, right? So I was trying to create a space to where people felt comfortable and also project like a positive energy in the atmosphere so things could feel a little bit more safe in the community. So it was always a deeper sense of, I would say it is an intelligence thing on the front end. It's preparation, and then a lot of it is just being in tune with the energy around and articulating it as it's happening.
Yeah, yeah. And do you see it as, just talking to you a little bit, I wouldn't be surprised at all if you saw it as somewhat of a, and I don't necessarily mean in a church type of context, but you're ministering to these people because you're connecting with them in a very unique way, and you just radiate care and love. Like, is it something that you're out there and you're thinking, I love my fellow humans, and this is an unbelievable opportunity that I have to use my gifts, even if it's just to put a smile on their faces? Like, are you thinking along those lines?
For sure, 100%, 100%. Like, you have the opportunity to say something that can help somebody with their day, minister to them. I've had experiences where people started crying. A lady came up to me, and I felt like I was like just having a crazy day, but I don't know. I just started rapping, and a lot of the times I do feel the spirit takes over. And after I was done, and I feel like I came to my senses, right, she had started crying. I was like, oh, dang, what did I say? You know what I mean? She was like, oh my gosh, like, she was like, man, I was having suicidal thoughts today. And what you spoke to me gave me life and gave me a sense of purpose. I was like, in my mind, I was just rapping. Right. But then I'm also conscious of, like, I know how powerful words are, life and death, right? So for me, it's kind of like, if I got the opportunity to have a microphone and say something of value, why not? And if that's what I'm assigned here to do, and I pray on that a lot, and I really meditate on that, then give me the words that's necessary to say to connect with these people. And yeah, if it's just to put a smile on somebody's face, if it's just to say, look, your shoes look totally fine, you don't really know how that compliment or how that brief interaction impacts somebody's life. Because people come back to me and say, man, I remember this time, and me and my friends and my family, and we were going through this. Or I was like, wow, I didn't even pick that up at that time. So moving forward, I think, you got to be more conscious, right? I do take it as a responsibility more than anything to understand what it is that I'm doing out there and how it could connect with people on that level. So
yeah,
I definitely see it like that.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, I saw a video on your Instagram account, and I don't know if it was a story that went away later because I couldn't find it again. But I love you were interacting with this guy, basically rapping, and he was standing next to you, and he put out his hand to like, hey, give me the mic, and you just worked it right in. You're like, I don't know about giving you the mic, though.
I don't know about the mic, though. I apologize, though, because it's my show. Either way it go, you can still dance, but it's cool, though. I can see your hand. Matter of fact, I can shake it. We can get it for the people on the pavement. It's really no hatred, but keep dancing.
And I was thinking, you know, as a pastor and someone who's in front of people and stuff, I was like, that took wisdom, because I bet you Ray is like, man, I like this guy. I want to be able to give him what he wants, but I have no idea what this guy is going to say. I ain't giving you no microphone.
Man, if you could, oh my God. Yes, that's exactly my mind frame. So, man, that's exactly my mind frame in that moment. Because it's like, yes, it's a platform. I'm on it. I don't know if you being in this position would benefit both parties involved. I don't want to disrespect you. I want to let you know that there's love involved. But I'm in the hip hop world, right? And so I understand it comes with the competitive, I want my opportunity to shine type territory. And it was funny because when I posted that clip, it split a lot of the internet in half. Like, some people were one way, like, man, you should have gave him an opportunity to perform and rap. You know, some people was like, nah, I've been in that opportunity. I know how it is. That's his show. Some people was like, well, he's on the street. How serious can it be? Some people was like, well, it's got millions of views, so it must be. So it was like all of these things. And I was just really, it's interesting for a conversation piece because it kind of stands on like boundaries, right? I believe we all have to have a sense of boundary, and we also have to respect people's boundaries, you know? And I think it was just I would have liked to hear him rap prior, maybe, you know what I'm saying? Then it might have been like a different conversation, but that's definitely my mindset. That's funny you bring that up because my cousin talked to me about that all the time. And people come up to me and be like, I don't know about the mic though. It's crazy. Somebody saw me that I had let rap with me before. And he was like, man, I just really appreciate you. I was like, you know, for what, man? He was like, because you knew about the mic with me. You knew about the mic with me. I was like, what? That's funny, man. He's funny, man. That's
That
funny,
is. So did you just stumble upon the social media aspect of your art and getting stuff out? Like, how did that component get built in?
Probably out of necessity. I think I got to a point to where I was doing all that I could, and I always wanted to be more in tune with the internet. It was kind of like that double-edged sword, like, the internet. But at the same time, like, we're in an era where, like, if you don't capitalize on it, then you could be missing a lot of blessings that come with that. So when I moved to Phoenix is when everything shifted more consciously towards creating content that could have the internet viewers kind of see who I am. And luckily I found a guy who was Ubering at the time. Shout out to my homie David Garza. He picked me up and he said he was a cameraman. And it was like magic, man. It was click tight. And he just started filming some of the stuff I was doing. And then like everything else, you're trying to like trim the fat, see what works, what doesn't work, da-da-da-da-da-da. But when I got more consciously focused on the internet, I saw just the instantaneousness of how your life can really change, you know. But I had been rapping like probably 6 years prior full time before I really even had some type of acclaim on the internet. And so that even had more appeal to be like, yo, let me really channel in and focus on it. So it only been like 2 years, I would say, that I really tried to focus on getting the internet.
Yeah.
And YouTube and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. We were so I'm in Charleston, grew up in Charleston, and a friend of mine, actually he was a childhood friend, then we lost contact, then we became friends again in college. Well, he's a voice major and he's a really big dude, and so he's an opera singer, and so we're like he has since passed away, so shout outs to Richard Blakeney. And he was we were all hanging out downtown and we just were like, Richard,
start singing your opera. I'm going to put my hat on the pavement and we're going to put money in there like we don't know you and let's just see what happens. Dude, we did that as a joke and he did that up until he passed away, probably about 15 years. He would go out there on Friday and Saturday nights, downtown Charleston. Like if you grew up in Charleston, you know, big opera singer because you hear him, you walk by him and everything. But he would make bank just singing opera right there downtown Charleston, man. Yeah, that was neat. What other?
Good.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Oh yeah. What other music you listen to? I thought that was super interesting. So you'll listen to a band like Vampire Weekend just to hear lyrical content and to kind of keep that in like a storage space in your head to access different phrases and different words and stuff. Is that kind of what you're saying? That's neat.
Really. I also pick up a feel of the energy to see what I'm about to spiritually go into, right? Like, okay, these people might be more pensive. These people might be more free-spirited. These people might be more religious. These people might be more open-minded. And so I think I always attempt to connect people. So I want to see like the triggering words within the musical content, like what possible music is already similar. Because I noticed like a lot of rock and roll, you know, a lot of stuff is sampled in hip hop. So you can see like the cross references. And when you start to study music, it's almost like a science experiment to me. Because I'm going out there with people that don't know me from Adam. And they're curious or maybe not curious at all. And I feel like I just want to spread a positive message. I'm a rapper, you know, not the best first impression for a lot of people, but it's fine for me because I already know what stance that it is. So it's almost like I have to prepare myself for energetically what could happen and make, I don't know, like, okay, prime example. My wife is big on energy. So before I leave, we'll have a conversation. And she'll be like, I think it's more of a prideful energy. It's a lot of stuff going on. I think you need to be more aware of that. I'm like, okay. And I'll go downtown and then somebody be trying to take the microphone. I'm like, okay, I was warned about this. I should be figuring out how to navigate that prior. Or some events, if it's too crazy, I just stay away from. But if I feel spiritually led to be there, I go anyways. So it just depends on the environment. So I always like to check what type of environment I'm going in to see what choice of music would be best for the environment to get their attention, to get the point across, to create, you know, whatever experience is needed for that time. And that's just my way of preparation. And then I also just like music in general. You know, I always listen to music. I've noticed like how music can be a sense of therapy. You know, nowadays it's not a lot of like really deep love songs. So I might like play those or something when I'm outside to like set the atmosphere. And it always surprises me on who knows what. You know what I mean? You never know what people are into, what people gonna come out of certain like concerts. So it's always that gift of surprise. So yeah, I kind of store that in my mind frames. And I really read the lyrics of artists, and people aren't that much different, man. They're just using different words to express either pain, love, agony, defeat, hope, inspiration. We all have a certain emotional thing that we're going through, but we just use different outlets of expressions to express it.
Yeah.
So that's what music has really shown me. Like, and I've got granted access to music I probably would never listen to had I not started rapping full time, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, man, getting old. Like when I think of love songs and the classics, I think back to, which I did not grow up obviously in this generation, but I think classic old school Motown. And I'll hear people now like in their 20s be like, oh man, like that classic Casey and JoJo song All My Life. I'm like, classic? What are you talking about, man? And then I'm like, that's 25 years ago. To them, that is an oldie.
Yeah, I know, right?
Redefining oldie.
I had to start redefining classics, man. Like, okay. Because they got instant classics, right? Like they say this is a classic. Let me not get too worried about it. But Casey and JoJo was good, though.
Yeah, heck yeah. All right.
That's 25 years ago?
What's that?
That was 25 years ago?
All My Life. Yeah, that was 1999.
Dang, somebody from 1999, 25 years old?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
How old are you? You tell your age? How old are
I'm
you?
33.
33. Okay. Yeah.
I'm
So
33.
I'm about 13 years older than you. But yeah, if someone's born in 99, they are 25 years old, man.
Oh, you
That's
looking
crazy.
good, man.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? We
thanks.
getting young out here.
I
We getting young.
appreciate it. All right. So when you are not freestyling out in the city or making hip hop at your house or not playing with your kids, what are you doing? What's a hobby? You like watching sports, reading, hooping? What do you
I
like?
love basketball. I love basketball. I love to read. My hobby, sports. Why I love. Yeah, I probably play basketball like I'm going to the NBA every time I step on the court, just because I just love to play. It's like an outlet. I ain't got nothing to prove. I'm past that stage where I got to prove everything.
Mm-hmm.
I just enjoy the cardio from it. I love to play video games with my kids, and then I like to. As of lately, I picked up a more habit with reading and just researching in general. I'm always curious about what I don't know. So those are like three things that I know I like to do. Just on a consistent basis and have access to. And then chilling with my wife and watching shows. She's a really big show watcher. So she had me watching stuff like Virgin River or something like that. And we be watching shows or Golden Girls or something like that. Just like, I don't know, I'm really into like art, just in all forms of like media. So yeah, it's like some of my biggest habits.
That's cool, man.
What about you, man?
So I love listening to music and I enjoy jogging. I've always loved basketball. And it's so funny that you said that because it is a completely different experience out there playing ball with the young fellas and not having anything to prove. Like I like when you're young, you don't even realize how heavy that is. Like when, you have a bad day and you airball a couple of times and don't hit a bunch of shots, like you're turning that over in your head all day. Next day, you're like, man, what do these people think of me? And it's like, I'm not even in a league. What am I even, and now I go out there and it's just like, I'm going to try, but I don't care, man. I mean, I'm how many years do I have to even go out there and ball as hard as I can? I want to enjoy myself, but I'm big into watching sports. Like I'm big Boston Celtics, big Green Bay Packers, and then big Clemson Tigers. So
they going crazy right now, Boston.
Oh man, it may be their year, man. I'm excited.
It looked like it.
Yeah,
they not playing around.
Yeah. They have that edge that I don't even think they had 2 years ago against the Warriors. It's like they are so locked in. I'd be shocked now if they lost this series for sure.
I think the Warriors, all of the LeBron James, the Jimmy Butler, all of those times, like the way that they came out playing, bro, like was like a statement is being made. I didn't know they were like that good. But then I had to think about it. I'm like, that's the same team. They've been together. They got the same core. Mm-hmm. They got veteran experience now. This is not their first time in the championship.
Right.
Yeah, it's about to be game 3 gonna be interesting.
Yeah. But I'll beg to differ, man. A game changer is Porzingis and Holiday. Like those two guys, yes, they had good teams in the past. But what they bring to the table, especially Drew Holiday's experience, man, my gosh.
I didn't know Porzingis was going to come out like that, though.
Who did?
Like, oh, my God.
Who did? All right, so this is the last question I'll ask you and kind of a creative angle. And you don't have to pick one thing, but just one of many. You're a passionate guy. You care about people. If you could send a text message to every single person who has a cell phone and you knew that they would read and take to heart what you text them, like what's one message you'd like to get to humanity because your heart beats for it?
And they could take it to heart, like that, and they would apply it.
Maybe not apply it, but they're going to give it some thought. Okay. They're going to give it some thought. Yep.
Gosh, I only get one. I just get one text message.
Oh, yeah, you can send a bunch, but I want to make your life easy on this podcast. So, what's one thing?
Okay. Hey, that's a great question. If I had one message I could send, I would say I know it would have to be something along the lines of gratuity. Because recently what I've been learning is I don't really let outside circumstances dictate my emotional sense of well-being anymore. I think that's very critical. To put it in a text format might be like, your values don't diminish based on what you accomplish or if you fail. Like really, really hone into that. Like I know we're in a world full of like accolades and achievements and golden medals and stuff like that, but they don't weigh your entire existence on what you accomplish. Instead, weigh it more on how you teach people to be grateful for what they already have. That would be something I would put in somewhere in the text message. It might be a paragraph though.
Yeah.
It need to be in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it, man. Hey, as a hip hop fan and just a personal admirer of your work, man, this has been a blessing for me just to get some FaceTime with you, get to know you some. And I wasn't expecting getting into fatherhood stuff, but that was awesome up front, man. Text me anytime if you want to vent or get some advice from someone who's a little further down the road with you, from you with that parent and stuff. But yeah, believe me, I need it more than I've ever because of the age of my kids. But man, thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Things You Won't Hear on Sunday Seacoast podcast. In the show notes, you'll see a link to our Facebook group page. Also, we'd love for you to consider subscribing so you get these episodes downloaded right when they come out. Thanks so much for listening.